And welcome everyone, and thank you so much again for joining us here at the Glunz Tasting Hall. My name is Joe Glunz. It's an absolute pleasure to host this fantastic Winery Wednesday. Today we are presenting a winery that I'm guessing most of you are very well familiar with, and that is Bodega Garzon from the beautiful country of Uruguay. And as I always do, I'd like to get started with the sharing of my screen to just kind of center everybody into where we're visiting. And as you can see here, we are all located here in this beautiful planet. And we're going to get started coming here from Chicago, which it's warmed up nicely from the last couple of days, but not quite enough to melt the 20-some inches of snow on the ground. But from here, we're going to go south where it is summer. Although it's a little rainy there, we are heading down to the southern, southeastern portion of South America to the country of Uruguay. Within Uruguay, we're going to the town named Garzon. So this is the very small town of Garzon. If you Google it, you'll see that one of the things that it's most famous for is an amazing restaurant and hotel owned by one of the great live fire chefs, who is also a partner with Bodega Garzon. Then we're going to sneak up just a little bit. This is the winery. You can see it there on the top of the screen. And then you can see these vineyards that they have. And the cool thing is that you can see these like veins going on all the way around here. All of these are small little plots that these guys will continue to talk about, but just gives them so many different opportunities in this beautiful vineyard for small little microclimates. And just give you a view of the topographical side. You can't really see it too much, but if you go in here, all these little tiny vineyards that are all of theirs, all have different facings and just make for a great complexity. You can really see the dimensions there and what makes this estate so unique. So without further ado, nobody's here to listen to me. So I'm going to pass it over. First person I'm going to introduce is Cari. Cari's with Pacific Highway, and she is an absolute rock star. I think a lot of you guys know Cari. She has sadly moved from Chicago to Minnesota, but is back in Chicago for this fabulous snowstorm. So welcome, Cari. Then we have one of my absolute favorite people in the world, Mele. Welcome. Thank you so much. She is the rock star hailing from the West Coast, and she is here in the US as a brand ambassador and overall Garzon rock star. And then speaking of rock stars, let me add to the spotlight. We have Alec, and then his sidekick, Christian. Welcome, guys, and thank you very much for taking your time this afternoon to present to us. We are in the beginning of harvest down south in Garzon, and one of the reasons that we were super excited to present Garzon is to hopefully have the opportunity to witness a little bit of that harvest. Alec told me this morning it's raining, so the harvest has paused slightly. But at this point, I'm going to stop talking and leave it to you guys.
All right. Thank you, Joe. And yes, I'm part-time. I'm in Chicago now. I heard it was warmer here for the Minneapolis, so I had to come down. But without further ado, I'm going to take it to the Southern Hemisphere and let Alec, Christian, and Mele out of Seattle relay and regale you with the glories of Uruguay. So I'm going to share my screen here and let them begin. I know we want to show you as much as we can in the time we have.
Thanks, Joe and Cari. Well, my name is Alec Griffiths. I'm the export director of the winery, and Christian is the managing director. We'll briefly go through Uruguay and the winery, and then jump into the wines. So first of all, we always like to explain about Uruguay and talk briefly about it because it's a small country in the corner of the world that people haven't heard much about. Well, that's our flag. But it's a very small country, 3.4 million people. So it's a small city in the US. And basically with a really good, high, excellent education, really good GDP per capita for Latin American country. And something that we always like to mention is that it's very democratic and low corruption. So a bit different from our neighbors countries in South America, which always helps us to stand up a little bit. Going to the next slide. Basically, we always like to say Uruguay is kind of the best kept secret of the Southern Hemisphere, because when we're talking about wine regions, you know, most famous appellations in Mendoza or Maipo Valley or even Stellenbosch, they're all the same exact latitude as our wine regions here in Uruguay. So that means we get the same sun exposure, at very different conditions, given that we are next to the Atlantic Ocean. So it's actually one of the few Atlantic Ocean wine regions in the world and in South America, of course. This is basically a zoom into Uruguay. All the yellow and red areas are where you can find vineyards, planted vineyards in the country. Just to give you a bit of background and context, in Uruguay, the wine industry and vineyards have been around for over 200 years, pretty much the same as Chile or Argentina. But people don't know much about it because it's quite a lot of, it's basically family-owned wineries and vineyards, small. So very little gets exported. Most of it is sold domestically here in Uruguay. And we have quite a lot of, quite a big wine culture. The consumption here in Uruguay is very high. So we basically drink it all. And the red areas are the most dense planted areas with vineyards, which you see are on the west side of the country. Bodega Garzon is on the east, where it says Maldonado. So it's a new area. It's we like to call it a 21st century terroir because it's still basically the first vineyards were planted 12 years ago when we started, and it's still a trial and exploration area. But we found very particular conditions in this area of the country, and this is why we developed Garzon precisely here. We'll talk more about those conditions in a minute. And this is just to give you a bit of a sense of place where we are. Garzon, you can see it on the top right corner. That's the small town. It's 11 miles inland from the coast. But through the coast, you have a lot of very small, beautiful beach towns and cities, which are basically a top summer destination. So in a normal year without a pandemic, basically, we would have 3 million people coming to Uruguay for this month, December, January, February, which is our summer. Remember, 3 million people is quite a lot when the whole population of the country is 3 million people. So we basically double in summer. This has been a very particular year, very strange in that way, with no tourism. The borders have been shut. But luckily, the Uruguayans domestically are traveling a lot, and luckily we've never stopped operation and tourism here at the winery. We wanted to jump into the first wine while we present, so it's not that boring, and you don't have to hear me all the time. The first wine is the Reserva Alvarinho. I hope everyone got their samples and are ready to taste while we move on. Alvarinho, this is quite an exciting grape and something that gives us a lot to talk about because there was no Alvarinho in Uruguay until basically 2008 when we started planting. When we started, it was a trial. We're going to talk more about the vineyard in a minute, and you'll see how we've basically developed these trials. But the reason why we planted Albarino is because our vineyard consultant and winemaking consultant, Alberto Antonini, very famous in Tuscany, from Antinori and different huge wineries. He studied the conditions here in Uruguay and in Garzon area specifically, and found a lot of similarities with Rías Baixas and Galicia in terms of the Atlantic Ocean proximity, the amount of rain. We get quite a lot of rain. It's raining today, so that's going to affect a bit our presentation, where we wanted to walk through the vineyards and show you around. We'll see if that's possible. I don't think so. But we have quite a lot of rain.
There's a little bit of sunshine.
I'll go out in a minute and I leave Christian to continue. But a lot of rain, Atlantic Ocean proximity, and granite soils. That was basically what made us bring Albarino. It's a beautiful wine, very fresh, with the natural acidity coming from the ocean proximity and the rain. Very nice minerality from the granite soils. And what we've seen is everywhere we take it, it's a fantastic food pairing wine. It goes very well with octopus, white fish, classical Galician pairings, but also a bit of spicy food. The acidity cleans very well the palate, so it's something you can enjoy with quite a lot of different kinds of food. And basically the Reserva white and rosé that we're going to taste, the Albarino and the Pinot Noir rosé, are the vinification is stainless steel tanks all the way. So it's mostly to keep the freshness, the fruit character, the acidity. And yeah, I mean, make it a very approachable wine and ready to have very young as well.
You want to go see if you can find some shots to share?
You continue.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just to warm things up, we have a slight rain this morning, but it's 30 Celsius, so we are short sleeve harvesting. It's only, it's only summer here, so it's summer's magic. The Albarino is actually quite resistant to rain, and it's one of the main reasons why it's the white grape variety for Galicia, for Rías Baixas, and it's doing really, really well here. One of the best, probably one of the best sleepers in our portfolio is the Albarino for its value. Out of Spain, it's rare to find a great quality Albarino below $20 retail. Here you have a very delicious, drinkable, fresh Albarino that retails under $20 with accolades, in the low 90s. So that's a winner for sure. This particular one just got, I can't see the slide, but I think it's 93. A little bit too far. But anyway, Alec, for those of you who are trying to understand what we're doing, Alec went with his phone to where we're crushing the grapes. So hopefully we'll get some live images of we're going to be bringing in Sauvignon Blanc, and today we started Albarino. I'm not sure which of the two are going to be on the reception line at the winery. But anyway, my name is Christian Wylie. I am married to Uruguay, literally. My wife is from Uruguay, but I'm from Chile, and I studied winemaking in UC Davis. So I really enjoy the States and respect very much all of our good American friends. And I hope everybody is taking good care of the weather and the famous COVID. This is a beautiful project. It's probably the best 21st century project in the world. It's a new terroir in the world, And it's all part of the vision of who you have on the screen, Don Alejandro Bulgueron. In the wine business, it's very important, the family aspects of things. The Bulgueroni family has a really long-term commitment to quality, to sustainability, and to developing Garzon. The story of the vineyards, which Joe was letting you in a little bit, we are 10 miles from the coast, the Atlantic Ocean influence, right in front of Jose Ignacio, which is like the hippie chic Saint-Tropez or the Hamptons of South America. So beautiful people, beautiful beaches, fantastic farmland. And if you go to the next one, please, Cari. The next slide, please.
We do have Alec wanting to show, so I'm gonna actually stop sharing the screen quick.
Alec is already there?
There he is.
Okay. You
Alec.
show the phone, or I'm seeing myself? Salud.
There's Alec. Can everyone see if we can put him up as the speaker? And if you want to unmute yourself, Alec.
Sorry, I'm muted because there's a lot of noise here. I can hear you guys.
So, yep. So Alec will be showing you the juice coming in, or the fruit coming in. I don't know if it's rosé or Sauvignon Blanc, as Christian had mentioned.
It's probably Sauvignon Blanc. We're finishing picking Sauvignon Blanc today, and also today we start harvesting Albarino.
What a fantastic view of this winery. So you can see how everything is carried up there by elevator, grape elevator, and then the grapes are dropped into these tanks. Beautiful tank farm. I can't even imagine what that cost to build, but it just looks beautiful. When I got the opportunity to visit the winery, this was only part of the winery that was already built, and the light structure around it, but just beautiful technology.
And it froze a little bit, but one thing we'll speak to.
Right now, grapes are coming in, a little selection table. We go to the pneumatic presses. It's all gravity flow. And then the juice goes into the stainless steel tanks in the case of the Sauvignon Blanc. We also have another section of fermenters of concrete in cubic shapes. And then we have another section of tulips fermenters, which I think it was part of the next slide that you had there. I don't know, Alec is showing, I can't really see his screen.
We can go back to the presentation, and hopefully he'll message me if we can get.
Well, if he catches an ostrich or a capybara or something, you will like to show it. But so basically, Albarino is a stellar. It's our #1 planted variety. We have close to 100 acres of Albarino. We grow 90% of all of the Albarino in South America. So very much pioneers and doing really well. The pictures on the screen are showing the granite. Underground here we have the oldest granite in the planet. This is a mother rock that has 3 billion years old. It's the rock that broke in Pangaea. So you have this in South Africa from Angola to Nigeria, and you have it in South America from basically Punta del Este, the south of Uruguay, up to Rio de Janeiro to the sugar loaf. This is very precious and sought after, kind of like a holy grail when it comes to terroir, because such an old mother rock means that it's meteorized and it breaks in the touch of the hand or all the roots. So the wines have tremendous minerality, and they're also an excellent for drainage. So we can farm here with rainfall, which is even more than in Bordeaux. So you'll taste the wines. They're not typical new world, jammy, alcoholic. They're much more old world, very balanced with good acidity and very high drinkability. So in the vineyards, what happened was in 2007, Don Alejandro invited Alberto Antonini, which Alec was mentioning, for me, the best winemaker out there in the world. I love his philosophy and what he's done in the past. He's one of the developers or discoverers of the Super Tuscans of Wylie, when he worked both with Frescobaldi and then with Antinori. Alberto has been working in South America and in the States and all over the place. And Mr. Bulgaroni invited him to see if the place had potential. Alberto basically saw that we're in the same latitude south as the best wine growing regions of the Southern Hemisphere, similarities to cool climate, Atlantic Ocean wines with this rock, but with sunshine. So we have a bit of the best of everything. What he recommended was to do a little trial. What happened was Don Alejandro told him, said, look, I invited you because I wanted to know if there was potential. If there is potential, we're gonna go full blown. We're not gonna plant 2-3 parcels and see what happens. I don't have time. Basically what you see on the screen, or what's right behind me, is a map of the vineyards that Joe was showing from Google Earth. This here shows you color coordinated, which are the varieties. So basically Garzon is a massive trial. It's a massive experiment of this new terroir with very vibrant wines and amazing energy. In purple is Tanat, which is the #1 grape variety planted. We have about 1/3 of the vineyards are Tanat. We'll talk about Tanat in the last 2 wines. We'll give you more information. But there's more than 20 different varieties because it is a trial. Now, what is amazing of this estate is the hills that have the purple color, Tanat, are facing the winery, they're facing north. That means Southern Hemisphere, they're sunbathed all day. We can ripen the grapes and they're protected from the wind, from the Atlantic, from the cold. So we can ripen very good red wines. On the southern slopes, you have the light blue, the greens are the Albarino, the Sauvignon Blanc, the Viognier. Those are facing south towards the ocean, getting all the cold wind. You remember the map, we face due south. You have the coast in 10 miles, and then you have 4,000 miles, you have Antarctica. So it is pretty chilly. Not today, but in general. So what happens is we have this versatility of mini terroirs, and the wine we're going to show you now is our. It's okay, you can change it now. It's our rosé, which we make of Pinot Noir. We planted Pinot Noir on the hills, on the slopes facing southeast. So you get the morning sun, you dry out the grapes, but you don't get any of the morning or the afternoon sunlight, but you do get the wind, the breeze. So we have a very, very good minerality, very good freshness, and approachable rosé. I know there's a big fashion, or there's a big trend, or there was a big trend. In our case, this is the wine that has grown fastest because we have basically this summer resort of Punta del Este and Jose Ignacio and Solanas is about 50 miles of coastline that we get more than 1 million tourists. And this has become the Punta del Este water, basically, to wash down the sunsets, and it's a very gastronomical rosé as well. It goes really well with salads, with seafood, and it's the color of Provence. It's the freshness of the rosés, of the best rosés, but with the Pinot Noir, you find length as well. So it's a very serious wine made with Pinot Noir that has been doing excellent results in the States as well.
Cheers. I hope everyone got to see the sorting tables. I lost connection somewhere there.
You did good. You did good. But really, I mean, it clings. It's very long. Makes your mouth water with the natural acidity. You find those wild strawberries. You know, the little fruit, and it's just really long and very fresh. And it invites you to drink. We also make magnums, and that goes, you know, out the door very fast. It's the preferred wine by Gwyneth Paltrow, and it's the only wine that she served on her second wedding up at Seinfeld's house. And it's a very versatile wine. Like some people enjoy eating with rosés from champagne. This is kind of that kind of edge and freshness in the wine. I don't know, Mele, you were cooling it in the snow. I think it was 10 or 20 inches. Putting it
Yes. Yes, and I was going to say that it's the one that pairs better with best with golf, the golf course. We love to drink Pinot Noir Rosé. Very elegant.
And another note on the taste profile, it's almost provincial in its taste, but we don't have the tariffs. So I don't like to harbor on price too much, but I just find this to be such an exceptional value for what you're getting on the palate.
Yeah, for a 100% Pinot Noir, at least here in the Pacific Northwest, having Oregon so close, I couldn't beat this Pinot Noir Rosé. It's my favorite by far.
Yeah, give it a chance because it sells. People come back for more. You fall in love easily. We've just had a lot of tremendous sales again for Carnaval. It's a big time of the year here. It's Valentine's Day. And like pretty much every vintage in the last 5 years, we've run out. We don't have enough to connect to the next harvest. So we already have Pinot Noir Rosé in the tanks fermenting of the 2021. And it's absolutely delicious. It's not yet dried out, but it's happening right now. So the winery, Joe was not wanting to tell you the level of investment, but it's 5 acres. If you verticalize the building, it equates to a building of about 65 stories. So it's very big. It was built not to have any impact on the landscape and to make everything gravity flow. It's the first construction of a winery and all of the facilities in the world that is LEED certified. The LEED is the Leadership of Energy and Environmental Design. It's very important for the US Green Council. We're the first ones in the world. We have the largest green roofs in Latin America. There's 7,000 square meters, which is about 70,000 square feet of green roofs where we treat we preserve the energy, we treat the water. We use the same native bush and plants from the natural reserve here. And it has basically the output of carbon is 50% from the start, from the engineering. We use only clean energy, and we're very, very proud to be so forward thinking. Okay, next. We were not able to see this. I think Alec lost the signal. This is underground. And what you're looking at on the sides, we call them tulips. You probably know them as eggs. They're concrete. We call them tulips because they're open top. We can load from the top. They're fantastic fermenters. They have the heating within the wall, so you don't have any thermal shock. Every fermentation we do here is native yeast, is local Garzon yeast. So we want to make sure we express the terroir and not necessarily what the winemaker thinks is the best yeast or the best oak. We do everything as natural as possible, at least intervention as possible. For the aging of the reds, now we're going to move into the reds. with almost, I arrived here 5 years ago. Sorry, can you go back one more? This is my 6th vintage, and we have not purchased any small barriques. All we use is botis. What you see there is a 5,000 liter barrel, which means it's about 20 different small barriques. The philosophy here is to have the biggest ratio of wine to oak. So that means we express the place, we express the fruit. We don't want you to taste oak. We just want you to enjoy the polymerization of tannins and anthocyans, the aging. The wines have a lot of color. The wines have a lot of structure. And the aging process, we want you to experiment, but not to feel vanilla or whiskey lactona, which are not part of the terroir. The third wine is Marcelin. Not sure how many of you know about this. Marcelin is a variety that was designed in the early 60s in Montpellier, in the south of France. It's a crossing between Cabernet Sauvignon and Grenache. And basically the idea was to get an earlier ripening cab. Cabernet Sauvignon does not work very well in rainy weathers like Bordeaux, and that's why you have so much seasonality. You have incredible Bordeaux when it's a dry summer and fall, and you don't have very good Bordeaux vintages when it's raining. So this has been very successful in the south of France, very successful here in Uruguay. And it's an interesting fact that it's the variety most planted in China. So even though it's a bit quirky and a bit of a discovery, 100% Marcelin, the future is very promising because it is the varietal for China. Velvety, fruity, massive mid-palate, very friendly, and an easy wine with pasta that has the backbone of a cab, but it's very sexy like Grenache. So a lot of red fruits, a lot of spice, a lot of pepper, and there you have on the screen the different accolades for the wine as well. I don't know, Mele or you, Cari, how does it go selling Marcelin in the States?
Oh, well, you were describing the style of the wine. I actually like to use a Disney character describing Marcelin, and I say it's like Maleficent. It's got kind of these dark nuances, but it's got a lot of like bright red apple fruit, which is just, it's fun and sinister at the same time. I think this is really fun.
Only Cari.
We have fun application with this because I think the tannins are really balanced. Even with a slight chill, there's a lot of versatility to this. If maybe someone who's trying to look for an alternative, something like a Cabernet Franc, I find this having that structure, but then a little more fleshy fruit. And I also hopped over Francis Mollman, so I wanted to hop back. I know I wanted to have you guys have some wine in your glass for that conversation, but I know, Christian, I wanted to let you speak to this.
No, we part of the philosophy is sustainability. It's also experiences. We present Garzon to the consumers and to the wine enthusiasts around the world through the place, through our local market and the local produce interpreted by Francis Ballman and the team. We have a restaurant at site that has been rated the #1 restaurant in a winery in the world, according to the Decanter magazine. And obviously that elevates the whole experience. Every tourist that comes here has a choice. It doesn't matter which time of the year, they have a choice of 10 different experiences. They can get an electric bike and go around the vineyards. They can do their own picnic. They have a cooking class or a blending session. And sometimes you even go harvest your own mushrooms in the winter. And because we have so many different varieties, there's a lot to experiment with. You just passed the slide of the Garzon Club, and no sé qué viene después de esto, pero within the winery. So Alec showed you the industrial side of the winery, the restaurant and the public area for tourism. And then we have underground, we have basically the Garzon Club, which is a billionaires club, billionaires in dollars. some of the people in, Forbes 100 or whatever. The owner of Garzon, Mr. Bugliaroni, is the wealthiest businessman in the region. It's built for the members to make their own wines here in Garzon, but also in his other estates around the world. We work out of 21 estates in 6 different countries. You can make your own Brunello Montalcino, you can make your own Santa Elena Napa wine, or your own Malbec in Argentina. So make their own wine. Obviously, there's a tremendous network of people. We're very, it also has it also includes a PGA preferred golf course. It gives you the chance to play golf all over the world, and TPC and the Masters and the players. And there's also a real estate project around the beach, the vineyards, and the golf course. So this is very much luxury, a lifestyle, but with amazing wines. At the end of the day, the best part for me is the wines, the balance, the drinkability, and what you're going to be tasting are wines or vineyards that is just turned 10 years old. So if you can project the quality in the future, I think the best part of Garzon is by far is the future. We're still at an experimental level. Marcelin, we use a little bit in our top icon wine that we trade through La Place de Bordeaux. We also have, after Tannat, the second most planted variety is Cabernet Franc, which Alec served here. I'm not sure if you're all, is everybody on Cab Franc? Is everybody still there? Are we talking too much, or are we having some fun?
Everyone is muted.
I believe we're all still here, and if anyone has any questions in the interim.
We're also muted now.
Feel free to put any questions to throughout the conversation in the chat box, and I'll be.
Yeah, by all means, please interrupt or ask. There's a round at the end, but Cab Franc, Cabernet Franc, we thought with Antonini and the team here that it had a lot of potential because it ripens earlier than Cabernet Sauvignon. Now, it's quite whimsical, as you all know, but we find a tremendous typicity of Cabernet Franc. There are some herbaceous notes, but it's not that pyrrhinic notes that bother you at all. We like to think that it's somewhere between Saint-Emilion and Chinon in the style. It's very French. It's not like the Cab Francs you find in California or in Argentina. Super elegant, again, incredible value.
And you all have in your glass the brand new vintage, which has not yet been rated. So I've included on here 90 points from Wine Enthusiast that we got on the previous vintage. But you're the first in the country to try it. I hope you guys are enjoying the 19.
That's the novia. Okay, phone call from Russia.
I think that the next slide is the whole portfolio, basically because what we've tasted so far, it's all the Reserva line. The last wine we have on this tier is the Tannat, which we'll taste next. And of course, we're going to taste 2 Tannats, the Reserva and the single vineyard. Tannat is Uruguay's iconic grape variety. Of course, it's a French grape variety, but in Uruguay, it just adapted better than any other. So basically, through the last 200 years, farmers in rural areas of Uruguay have been planting more and more Tannat because it has given them the best crops. It's a survivor grape. It tolerates very well the humidity and the rain that we get here in Uruguay. But in Garzon, we wanted to respect that. We wanted to have Tannat. It's our most planted grape, but we wanted to give it a very nice, approachable style. Because if you drink Mariran, Tanat from Mariran, where it's originally from, usually you get a very huge tannic wine, basically a punch on the mouth.
Uppercut.
An uppercut, super tannic, big structure. Here we wanted to respect.
Right?
Same.
You have, oh great. I can't really see this, the tasting sheet. You have the 19, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
So the whole style of it is to get as much fruit to balance it as possible. And it's interesting to hear the winemaker Herman and the consultant Alberto when they start talking about how to produce the nut. There's a lot of no's into it. The no over ripening, no over oaking, and even no over wine making. So it's basically just to show a pure style and expression of fruit in our terroir. And of course, it's always local food. Local food have to pair well with the local wine. Tanat is a really good grape to have with beef, with red meat, because it cuts through the fat very nicely. And in Uruguay, and basically in Uruguay, we mentioned 3 million people, but we have 12 million cows. So there's 4 cows per person in Uruguay. So it's basically something that we need to go through all that. So we have 2 tanats, the Reserva, which is the first one you should taste. Basically, it's fermented in concrete tanks, not the tulips, regular cubic tanks. We use quite a lot of concrete, basically because you have pores where you get microoxygenation, and it helps rounding the tannins of the tanat very nicely. And then aged 6 to 9 months in French untoasted oak fooders and tunnels that you saw in the picture, the big ones, the casks. And then the last wine, which is the single vineyard tanat. Basically, what we get here is the best quality fruit. So from out of the 1,500 blocks that we have in the vineyard, nearly 1/3 of that is tanat. So we can say there's around 500 different blocks of tanat. So for single vineyards, we select the best 8 to 10 blocks every vintage. They can change year to year depending on the conditions, if it's a rainy year or a dry year. And then the vinification is a bit different as well. We use the concrete tulip tanks. So it's a much more elegant and smooth extraction of tannins and structure. And then the aging is a bit longer in the oak casks. It's between 12 to 15 months. So you get a much rounder and elegant style of it as well, with structure, of course.
The difference is of course, the parcels and the yield per acre or per hectare. In tanat, you obviously feel the tannins in your mouth, but they're not necessarily clinging to your gums and make it unbearable. You're tasting a big red wine in the middle of the morning. Obviously, it's screaming for a juicy steak, which is what we do here, the famous asado, the famous barbecue. But the tanat, the grapes in general have up to 4 seeds. It depends on the fertility of the variety. Tanat almost always has all 4 seeds, each grape. So you need to be very careful when to pick. You need to go, obviously tasting the skins and seeing the color, but you got to be chewing those seeds. Make sure that they're crunchy. Make sure the lignification is started. So you don't bring into the winery green tannins. You only bring the right tannins. The other aspect of how we vinify here is that we do cold soak pre-fermentation. So the wine, for example, the single vineyard would go into the tulip, the berries. I don't know if you noticed, but when Alec was filming, the line, the processing line includes an optic sorter. That basically means that after the destalker, we sort all the berries by color, and only the best goes into the the 2-liter cement tanks. When we fill that up, we fill it up with dry ice. So for at least 2 days, even sometimes 3 days, there's no fermentation. It's just maceration in cold temperature. The dry ice changes into CO2, into gas. So it stops from any attempt at fermentation. We're extracting, meanwhile, all the aromas, the color, all the nuances of the grapes. Then we start fermenting, and very often we actually rack out the wine even before the fermentation is over, because we don't want extraction with the 13, 14, 15% of alcohol. That's when you get the green tannins, and that's the classic vinification in Madeira in France. They leave it in skin contact for 20 days or sometimes a month. So those wines, you have to lie them down for 10 years. Beauty is very juicy, very fresh. Tannats that go fantastically well with steak, with lamb, even of course with cheese. And it is, as Mele like to call it, nature's Botox.
Yes. Yeah, it's the healthiest grape. I studied at UC Davis too the phenolic contents of grapes, and if we compare Tannat to Cabernet Sauvignon, the contents that are good for your health are concentrated 4 times the times of Cabernet Sauvignon. So not only having the pleasure of having this beautiful wine, so elegant and different. I love what Elizabeth mentioned, that is a very beautiful alternative to Cabernet Sauvignon, and it's something that people gets excited because it's a new grape variety, but it's the healthiest grape variety. So it's good for your heart. So I hope you keep that in mind.
We're like doctors. That's what's going on.
Again, if you compare the style and the quality of the wine to Napa or any French wineries, this is a red that should be, around $50 or even more. It sells below $30, and it just made the top 100 wines in the world by James Sackling of Best Value Wines. So this is obviously a killer, and something that should do really well in the wine shops and the steak houses in Chicago.
And it's William Shakespeare's favorite grape variety. You know why? To be your.
Do we move on to the little one or not?
Last but not least, yes. Let's go to Balasto.
I think it's back to you now, Cari. Questions or?
Yeah, so just wanted to, these are some highlights on the awards and accolades that you spoke to throughout the presentation, including a few extra. I don't know if you saw that last eye chart, but that was basically how much the world adores the whole portfolio from Garzon. Not just the wines they make, but the facility they've created, the restaurant within the winery. It's truly what I like to call Jurassic Park. And hopefully when we can all travel again, we can find a way to get you there, because it is unlike any place I've ever seen in the world. So that being said, we've got a couple other things to show you. If you do want to take some time, open some Tannat, Amazon Prime partnered with wine enthusiasts to create a show called It Starts With Wine. The very first episode is at the great estate of Garzon, narrated by Francis Mallman himself. So please kick back on Friday night if you've got some time. It's about 20 minutes. But if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. I appreciate the commentary, Elizabeth. Your customers seem to be great fans of Garzon. Marcello, an Uruguayan native who definitely has good taste, considering he said the single vineyard is superb.
Mike pairs it with Tannat with rock and roll.
There you are. So that being said, please open the floor if anyone has any questions. There we go. I stopped my video. There we go. I want to thank you all for being here. I see some familiar faces, so I'm glad we've created some avid fans in Chicagoland. But yeah, by all means, got one new message. The wines have their own section. Thank you, Elizabeth. That's great.
have their own section. Currently.
The show on Amazon Prime, John Young, is called It Starts With Wine. So it's a partnership with wine enthusiasts. They go to varying wine regions in the world, narrated and kind of pairing it with food. It's got a chef's table kind of vibe, but this is more specific to wine. So it was an honor to be the very first episode.
It starts with wine and it starts with Garzon.
Absolument.
Absolument. And it's really cool because it's Francis Mallmann, the best chef of South America, with Alberto Antonini, top winemaker in the world, and they compare and contrast, and it's like a talk show between them. It's very good.
Exactly.
Some great pictures of the beach and the hills.
And you all saw photos of the U.S. portfolio. Glunz is an amazing partner. They've carried almost every SKU aside from some very allocated ones that primarily just go to one retail shop in Napa Valley. But outside of that, the world is your oyster. We can literally show you anything that they're producing at Garzon. And I want to thank you all once again for coming. I really want to thank our international hosts, even though Seattle, I could still consider you international, Mele. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Christian and Alec. And Joe and the team at Glunz, thank you for giving us the stage. Really excited to be here. So,
Cari, thank you, and Mele, thank you, and Alec and Christian, you guys are fantastic. Thanks for taking us through the all but brief hit of the 2021 harvest out there in Uruguay. We can all say that we're already involved in the 2021 harvest, which is going to blow away in 2020. Oh God, I hope it does. Anyways, thank you all very much for coming. I will be forwarding the recording of this out to everyone, including Cari, if you can forward me the presentation that you guys gave. I will include that in all of the RSVP emails. And I cannot thank you all enough. And I hope to see you all on Monday for our next Glunz Tasting Hall presentation with our next masterclass. Ladies and gentlemen, salud.
Salud, muchas gracias.
Cheers.
Thank you, Joe, Cari, and everyone to be here.
Cheers.